very important conversation, and one that will inform you. It will be, of course, very thought-provoking for that matter, and it's about myths and facts about fibroids. And we have the perfect guest for this conversation. Her name is Fatma Mohammed, and she is the founder of Wellness KE. Thank you so much for joining us, Fatma.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
Right, and before we get into this conversation, I'm asking you once again, have you registered for the Stanchart Marathon? If you haven't, I promise you, I am going. I promise. You will see me there. I will be running. I want to challenge myself to do 10 kilometers. I'm dicey between the 10 or 5, but I really want to try do the 10 kilometers. So if you want to challenge yourself, if you want to have fun with your family, friends, your colleagues, this is a thing you want to do, man. And they're different kind of races. You can even go further than me, right? We have the 21-kilometer race, we have the 42-kilometer race, we have the 10-kilometer race, we have the 5-kilometer race, man. It's a plethora of, you know, races you can choose from. And remember, you can do it with your family, friends, and it's all for a good cause. And this year, they're aiming to register about 23,000 runners, so you can be part of it. And I just want to remind you that, you know, if you have hopes and dreams of being a runner on a global scale, some of our prominent names, some of our inspiring names have begun on that platform of the Stanchart Marathon, and they have traversed the borders, and they're now global names, you know, household names. So, and you can be that too, you know. So go ahead, check it out. If you do not believe me, go to the website www.nairobimarathon.com and check it out and see if it's something that you'd want to do. I promise you, it'll be worth your while. So that mentioned, like I said, I'll be there. Right, so let's get into our conversation. Fatma, let's look at the facts or myths, right? And rather, before I even forget, we have a question of the day for you, our viewers. We are asking you about, you know, your thoughts and beliefs. You know, what do you think this, aspect of fibroids is? You know, what's one question you've always wanted answered about fibroids? What's one question you've always wanted answered about fibroids? Our social media handles are right there on your screens. That is Facebook and X. You can use the handle at K24 TV, and the WhatsApp line is right there on your screens. Right, so getting into the conversation, Fatma, let's take a look at the aspect of fact or myth. Are fibroids cancerous?
Which is the biggest question. I mean, you've asked the perfect question. What's the one thing anyone would want to know, any woman would want to know about fibroids? And so many of us as women, we worry about the fact that, is this fibroid going to become cancerous, which is the biggest question. And the answer is no, because a fibroid tumor is benign. It is not cancerous. It does not become cancerous. And women should mostly worry about the hormone estrogen, because that is the hormone that leads you to having fibroids. Because majority of the times when you struggle with an issue like fibroids, when the symptoms now come about, like in my case, I had one tiny fibroid when I was 21 years old. I was diagnosed with one tiny fibroid, and then unfortunately my doctor was like, okay, so you don't have any symptoms, it's not necessarily going to do much to your health, so you know, you can go on and live your life. And that's what I did. I did exactly what he told me. And unfortunately, I ended up having 23 fibroids, and that is in a span of a couple of years. But it went on getting much, much worse, and I was worried, because I was like, this is one thing. I went to the hospital to present, such that I wanted to get a solution, because I was like, let me get ahead of it. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's cancerous. That's the first question I asked my doctor. And because he assured me, I went on living my life. And again, just like so many women out there, you end up having one small fibroid. At the end of it all, there may be 7 fibroids. You might have 20 fibroids, and larger fibroid than how you started. So fibroids are not necessarily cancerous, but they do, I would say, impact your life negatively in a very, very big way. In my case, I used to get very, very painful periods that were very heavy, very painful.
As one of the symptoms?
Yes, and that was one of the signs, because at first when I went into the hospital, my doctor asked me a couple of questions, you know, and then the questions were like, are your periods heavy? Are they painful? And my answer was no, because at that time I did not have any symptoms, and that's something I want for women to understand. Sometimes you might have fibroids and they may be symptomatic or they may be asymptomatic. You may not even have any symptoms at all. You have no idea that you have the fibroid. That's why it's important to do a checkup so that you can be able to get that ultrasound. It will tell you whether the fibroids are there or not.
And what prompted you in the beginning to get that checkup? Because you see, for some women, or rather in research, you'll see that it's the lower abdomen that starts bulging.
I know. But in my case, I did not have that. I actually used to really exercise. I lived a very healthy lifestyle. I was very fit. But the thing is that I felt something. It felt like a rock, like a pebble. Every time I would press my abdomen, I felt something there.
Was it painful?
Yes, it was a bit painful. Discomfort is the word. It's not necessarily pain, but I'm like, if I press this, I really feel very uncomfortable. And then I remember I asked my mom about that. She had no idea, because she was like, I don't think that is normal. Then we need to go and, you know, have it checked. And of course you have fear, which is what most women are going to admit. You have that fear. So it took me a while before I even went into the hospital, because I was like, what if they find something? What if it's cancerous? What if it's that? And I'm so young, I have no idea.
Yeah, 21 is young.
Yeah, and then I gathered the courage at some point. I went into the hospital. And then when I went into the hospital, I remember the doctor asked me a couple of questions, but they were not really relating to fibroids, which is like heavy periods, painful periods, or lower back pain, leg pain, bloating, and all that. And so he was like, okay, let's just do an ultrasound and find out what could be there. And when they did the ultrasound, that's when the medical report came, and it said that I had a tiny fibroid. It was the size of a pea, a garden pea. Because normally when you are diagnosed with fibroids, they have to mention, like, this fibroid is located at this place, and it's the size of, it could be the size of a fruit, like a lemon or a pea, or sometimes a melon. It could be that large. And so they have to actually give you like a visual idea of what it is that is there. And so in my case, the doctor was like, you don't necessarily have too many symptoms. You know, these fibroids sometimes go away. But that is a tough lesson that I had to learn, which I would really love to share with so many women. If you find that you have a fibroid, please don't sit on it and think this fibroid will go away. I don't have any symptoms. Don't wait for it to get worse, because it will get worse. Because as I've mentioned, fibroids come about because you have high levels of the hormone estrogen.
And some would beg to, you know, ask,
Yeah.
how is that? You know, there's a lot of hormonal imbalance,
Yes.
especially present day in
Yes,
women.
yes.
You know, your energy goes down, your moods are, you know, very helter-skelter.
Yeah, your period is irregular. Sometimes it's missing. You even have bloating. Even when you've woken up in the morning, you have eaten nothing, but you're already bloated.
And
your
full.
stomach is, yes, your stomach is already full and swollen. But that's because our hormones actually run our body, because they're supposed to now help you with your appetite. They help you with fluid retention. Sometimes you'll find women even gain more weight when they are nearing their period, because sometimes you have you're holding more fluid because of the hormone estrogen. And so these hormonal fluctuations actually will determine how you feel, how you look. And we have to understand that as women, is that these hormones are very vital. They run our entire body. So if we don't have them balanced, then so many parts of our bodies are actually not going to be carrying out the functions as they are supposed to. And estrogen is one of the biggest culprits, because it is a very important hormone to help us so that we can be able to have our menses, so that we can be able to become pregnant. It's a vital hormone. And even when a girl is young and hits puberty, you need estrogen so that you can grow and develop into now a woman. You'll develop breasts, you'll develop hips, and to have the female characteristics, estrogen is now our dominant hormone as women. But when we have it in excess,
and what makes it gets
to
into, you know, the excess?
Excess, yes. So with estrogen, it can either be from within, which is endogenous estrogen, or it can come from the outside, the environment, exogenous. If it's endogenous estrogen, it means normally you'll find that there are some women, due to genetics, they might actually be producing excessive amounts of estrogen. And by genetics, we mean if you find that from your maternal side, let's say from your mom's side, your aunties, your sisters, your mom, your grandma, there are some women who have had issues like heavy periods, painful periods, fibroids, cysts and all that, then you're more likely to actually struggle with this issue. And then another thing is that normally your liver is supposed to help you in metabolizing estrogen. It takes up the good amount of estrogen, uses it in the body, then the excess needs to leave. So if you have a lot of toxins in your body, your liver is supposed to help you in cleaning out the toxins from your body. So majority of us, we're struggling because our diet is very poor. Our liver doesn't have the proper support so that it can function properly and remove this excess estrogen and metabolize the good one. So because of that, you find so many of us are struggling. If you maybe are drinking alcohol, you are overweight, you have high amounts of fat in your body, that means fat is normally carries toxins. So you are actually impairing your liver instead of it having that full health so that it can really metabolize the estrogen correctly. And then another thing could be also the removal of the excess estrogen. The only way the estrogen can leave your body is through excretion, through pooping. So that's why majority of the times for women, when you are dealing with high estrogen, you'll find that you're highly constipated, you don't get regular bowel movement. That means that the toxins or the excess dirty estrogens that were supposed to leave, they're actually being reabsorbed.
So, and is that why we have so many cases also in women, the gastrointestinal issues?
Yes, the gut issues are related to your hormones. Actually, when your hormones are balanced, you'll never struggle with any issue to do with bloating, gas, or even just belching all the time. You'll find majority of the times women deal with this. Yes. And then the stomach feels very swollen and hard, and even when you press, there's a lot of discomfort. And they'll tell you, like, I'm trying my best, I'm trying to eat this, I'm trying to eat that, but it's because our hormones are not balanced, because the hormone estrogen is metabolized in your gut. So if you have any kind of impairment, if you have any kind of excess toxicity, you're not necessarily doing the metabolism is not happening correctly, and then you're not getting rid of the excess correctly. So there's like a problem of blockage and nothing is moving out correctly. And then also there's the external sources of estrogen, which means that for us women, when you think about it, we are more exposed to chemicals in the environment, and it's
even
insane.
The ones we put on ourselves.
It's insane when you think about it. Like if you compare yourself with a man, a male counterpart, when you look at how we spend our day, the amount of chemicals we come into contact with is unbelievable, because when it goes all the way to skincare, to makeup, to hair care, to cleaning products, to our sanitary towels, or even menstrual cups, to all that. All these are products that are made with chemicals in them. And unfortunately, some of these chemicals are called endocrine disruptors. They go and disrupt your endocrine system such that your hormones end up being imbalanced. And how they actually do that is these chemicals, when they come into contact with your skin, they actually start behaving as if they are estrogen. So they start mimicking your own body's estrogen.
That is insane.
And it's insane how fast this can actually happen. Because even for me, someone actually, a loved one, gifted me a hair care product. It was a moisturizer, a hair moisturizer. And I started using it. And within, I think, 1 week, my whole face, including my neck and chest, I broke out. And then when I read the packaging, because I'm aware, you know, so when I read the packaging, I was like, oh my goodness, this actually contains paraben, and paraben is one of those chemicals. So when you look at paraben, you'll find it in makeup, you'll find it in our skincare products, in hair care, you'll even find it in our toothpaste. So majority of the times we do come into contact with chemicals we are not very aware of, but it's very important for us as women to know. That way we know, like, if I'm more susceptible, if maybe I have a family medical history of fibroids, or if I've gone to the doctor, checked my estrogen levels, I'm finding out that they're very high, then I'm more keen on, of course, using more natural products on myself. And also I'm more keen on eating more fiber, you know, drinking more water, keeping a cleaner diet, because that's going to help me in cleaning out, because fiber is like a broom. It cleans out excess estrogen out of your body. You
know, you had mentioned to me some time back that especially when you're nearing your period, and in this case, when you have painful periods and uncomfortable periods, drinking water is so important.
It is.
Because it helps dilute a lot of, you know, what is happening in your body. So I think you just need to make that aspect super clear, especially in relation to the topic.
And actually, the one thing we need to remember is that in a day, you would need about 2.5 to 3 liters of water. So for some people, when you tell them that, they're like, I'm not going to drink that much water and I'll probably forget. And I understand, because I'm the same. Sometimes I forget. But what I do is I actually set a timer on my phone. So basically, you need to hydrate, because this is very important in order for you to not deal with issues like very heavy periods or clots in your period. Because as you can think of a liquid, a fluid in your bloodstream, this is your blood, and if it's very thick, because of high estrogen, we need to understand estrogen can make, when it's in excess, it makes your blood very thick and sluggish. That's why you can form clots. That's why you can actually have clots in your period.
Even pass out.
Yes, and even have blood clots, because for me, when I had fibroids, I ended up developing a blood clot in my leg, and I asked so many doctors, like, why do I have a blood clot? And unfortunately, no one had an answer for me. It was later on that I came to discover that high levels of estrogen will lead to blood clots. That is something as women we need to understand. So no one should just tell you like, oh no, it's just a fibroid, at least it's not cancer, you're okay. No, yes, the fibroid is not going to end up being cancerous, but you are more susceptible to other conditions like blood clots, and your high estrogen can put you at risk of conditions like breast cancer and so forth. So hydration is very key for you, because it's going to help you in just draining excess fluid, number one, and also it's going to help you with making sure that you have regular bowel movement, because when you don't have regular bowel movement, you are reabsorbing all the toxins that are supposed to leave, and when you reabsorb, then you have excess estrogen, because these are the dirty excess estrogens that were supposed to leave. For me, I know the biggest struggle when I had fibroids, my biggest struggle was painful periods and pain that was enough to make me pass out. So let's say if I have my period, I just start experiencing pain. I used to feel numbness around my lower back, and then it would come numbness to my legs, and then I would just pass out. And my biggest fear was, I hope I don't pass out and my head hits, you know, somewhere.
Yeah.
That was my biggest fear. I didn't even worry about anything else. And I also didn't want for it to happen when I was outdoors, because majority of the times it would happen when I was indoors. And that's because when you have issues like fibroids, you actually plan your days around your period. You don't have normal days, because you find that when your period is painful, you'll avoid going certain places. You'll avoid, you know, it starts impacting your life in that way.
Yeah.
And
it makes you not, you know, have this normal quality.
Yeah.
You know,
it actually goes as far as disrupt you. If maybe, let's say, you are planning to go on a trip, or you are going to a family member's wedding or something, you might miss some of these important days, because maybe that is the time where you actually have very excruciatingly painful periods. And so for me, I remember the time that I had to really do something about it was when I was actually in town in CBD, and I had gone to the salon, and I wanted to just get my hair done. And when I was done, I started now experiencing the pain, and this was my biggest fear, like, I hope this doesn't happen outdoors. And I remember I actually passed out like outside of CBD, Kenya Cinema. And then, but I was lucky. The people who came to help me, they were very kind. They even, because where I passed out, there is actually a church there. So there were people who were leaving the church, and I'm so glad, because one of them was one of the pastors. He came downstairs, he found me there, and then so many people came. They helped me, took me to the hospital, and did not leave until my family came all the way from Mombasa. Can you imagine? They stayed there. They stayed there and did not leave. And I honestly owe them my life, because I had that fear, but I understood that even when you struggle with such issues, God already has sent you people who are going to walk with you, even when things like that happen that you cannot control. So even for women who are watching and they're struggling with this issue, that is usually our biggest fear, like, what's going to happen to my health? What's going to happen to my body? What's going to happen to my fertility? Am I going to struggle with that in future? Which is something that we really have to talk about, because when it comes to fertility, it doesn't mean that when you have fibroids, you will struggle with your fertility, because fibroids are characterized by their location. Yeah. So a fibroid that is located within the uterine cavity, which is what they call a submucosal fibroid. That type of fibroid, it can make you struggle with your fertility because it takes up the space where the baby would be if you were pregnant.
Now let's take a look at the sizes. Now that you said
yes,
that.
Yes.
You said a seed.
Yes.
Could be even a grapefruit.
Yeah.
To a watermelon.
Yeah, it could be as big as that. And they actually have to visually show you. And you have to see, because then it gives you an idea of what's really going on within your body. So it can be, the tiniest can be a fibroid that cannot even be seen. Let's even start there, because there's some women who go get ultrasounds and they, you know, nothing is able to be seen. And then it could be as tiny as the size of a garden pea. Okay, and then it could be the size of maybe a lemon. It could be the size of a grapefruit. It could also be the size of a watermelon. It can grow bigger than that. And so, and then in terms of number, you know, when you have one fibroid, then you're more susceptible to having even more. And that's mainly because estrogen, the estrogen hormone is a hormone that makes things grow. As I said, like when you hit puberty, this is the hormone that will make your breasts grow, your hips, and you develop. So unfortunately, it will go and do the same thing to the fibroid. It will start making the fibroid keep.
And then it will mimic the aspect that you have a baby.
Yes,
but it's actually
as if it's a baby. And even when you have the fibroid and you have a pregnancy, you find that majority of the times you might lose the pregnancy depending on where the fibroid is located. If it's located within the cavity of the uterus inside, that fibroid is going to be competing with the fetus for all the blood supply, because fibroids keep on growing because there's blood supply in your womb. And the blood supply comes from you having your menses every month. Whenever you have whenever you have your uterine wall, it's an area where you actually, it's a wall that grows and then we shed it every month. So that area has a lot of blood supply and blood vessels, and fibroids that grow within the uterus and also on the along the walls of the uterus, they do make women struggle with their fertility because there's that competition between the fetus and the fibroid, and majority of the times the fibroid wins and then you lose your pregnancy. But it's clear that we need to understand there are certain types of fibroids, like the fibroids that are located outside of the uterus, growing outward. Sometimes they do not affect your fertility so much. These are the kind of fibroids that cause the bloating, the stomach to swell, the constipation, because they are pressing on other organs. So there may be discomfort in that way, but because of the location, they may not necessarily make you struggle with your fertility. I think that myth, we have to bust that myth very clearly, because as women, sometimes we struggle. So you have to look at your medical report, your ultrasound, go through it very clearly and understand, where is this fibroid that you have? Where is it located? What does it say on the medical report? And be very clear even with your doctor, like ask them, like, this kind of fibroid, does this mean, you know, should I decide to become pregnant? Can I really walk through a pregnancy with this fibroid? And what does that look like for me? Like, what would you advise me? For me, I used to ask my doctors, I tell them, if I was your daughter, like, what would you advise me?
Instead of just the aspect of the patient.
And I found out that whenever I said that, they would actually be even more keen and they would actually give me better advice, because a doctor sees so many people in one day, and it's just like a short time frame. They're always looking at the clock because you're there, then you have your medical file. But then I used to be like, okay, I know I have very few minutes, but please just advise me. If I was your child, like, would you tell me to do this, or would you advise me to go with this kind of, you know, procedure? Right. And you get better advice.
Okay, Fatma, you know, we have some feedback here from our audience. Okay. And we have Caleb Katenya, who says, what causes fibroids? And can they, and what's the treatment? That was Caleb asking. So we have Somoleo, who says, can they just disappear with time? Because we're almost going for a break, I think also the other aspect to think about, or when we come back rather, is the treatment. You know, you will look at you know, articles online and they'll say medication, and a lot will suggest surgery. I know, but surgery is not a very easy thing. You don't just walk into surgery, you know, because as someone who has had an extensive surgery, I always share with my fellow women, I tell them, it's not something you just walk into and come out the same, because I believe my body is not the same after surgery. It has not come back to how it was. And so in terms of just what causes, it's usually high estrogen levels, so it's important to get that checked. And then in terms of treatment, we'll go into some of the natural remedies, because there are women who have been able to shrink them naturally and they're okay. Okay. Now, when you speak about the surgery aspect, you're not guaranteed that they will not come back.
No, you're
if
not.
If anything,
because
you know, there is always a scan you'll do after the checkups,
yes.
and you'll be told one or two is still there.
And also, let's think about the fact that the surgery does not fix the high estrogen. I understand that this surgery is there because it's supposed to remove something that is really causing a lot of havoc in your life. But there's a reason why you're told, like, within a year, come back, let's check, because they know they have not necessarily fixed the root cause and why the fibroid is growing. And as I mentioned, the fibroid is growing because you have high levels of this hormone known as estrogen. If you start smart, you start by balancing your levels of estrogen, then you're actually going to end up seeing that the fibroid is going to start shrinking, and you're much, much more confident in the fact that it's not going to grow all over again. As I said, it's a hormone that can make things grow. You have to target the root cause, which is estrogen, as opposed to just saying, I'm going to have them removed. And another thing, a hysterectomy. This is a surgery that is usually recommended for so many women, whereby they get to remove their uterus. This is not necessarily the best approach, and I'll say it because when I had the fibroids and now they were checking my ultrasounds, and they found out that at that time I had about 7 to 8 fibroids, every doctor was telling me to have a hysterectomy. But I said no, because I asked them, if I remove this, my uterus, it doesn't necessarily mean that I have dealt with why this fibroid came. At that time, I didn't know why fibroids are there, but I just knew deep down I have not dealt with the root cause. Yeah. It's the equivalent of saying, we've poured water on this carpet, let's cut out the part that's wet. And then now we have not stopped this water from pouring again, because when it pours again,
so just keep on cutting
yes,
the carpet
do we
up.
cut the carpet, and then now what happens? We need to stop the source of the issue, which is...
Fatma, at that, just hold on to that point. We're taking a short break. We'll be back with more of this conversation. Do stay with us. That is awesome.
Catch every thrilling moment of the English Premier League